Testing 1, 2, 3. All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg. So glad to be talking to you today. It is Tuesday, right? Yeah, because yesterday was Labor Day. Had a great day with my family, and I really enjoyed our show yesterday as well. Hope you did. I got some comments, and I tried to respond to them. I try to respond to everyone who makes a comment on any media whatsoever that I see, whether it's Facebook, whether it's YouTube. I actually am posting quite a bit on X, or I wouldn't say quite a bit, but sometimes on X. I have Instagram pages. So if you comment anywhere, I'll do my best to respond to you. My first priority, though, is this podcast, this live stream. It's only live when I'm actually live. Otherwise, it's a podcast, I suppose. But I really want to talk to you when I do it. And it's very, very easy. You just pick up the phone. It always works as far as I know, unless it doesn't. And then I don't know, but you can tell me by texting, emailing, or just putting on social media. 240-242-5646. And yes, this is Fogressives Part 2, and I highlighted, I don't know if you can quite tell from that image. Let's see if we can get it back up for you. I highlighted, let's see, we got Crystal Ball. We've got in the middle, David SIrota. That is not, you might think that's Kyle Kulinski. I've been pretty negative on Kulinski, and I still am. It's not like that's changed, but I highlight 3 Fogressives. And of course, you have AOC on the right, and it's kind of a weird picture of her. That's from the video that she put together. Oh, why we have that countdown? Let's get rid of that countdown. And the video I did that she did, actually, and she posted. I don't think she should have posted it, to be perfectly honest. I think it makes her look pretty bad, as Larry David would say, but we'll get to that. That's what this program is going to kind of focus on, how these figures who present themselves as allies of poor, struggling, and working people, people who, public figures, right, who have some real influence, a lot more than I do. By the way, one of the most frustrating aspects of doing this program is people who are saying to me over and over again, why are you supporting Jill Stein? She has no chance. She can't win. You might as well vote for a box of rocks. And that's the problem when you say that. If you are posting on social media, somebody is reading what you're saying. Maybe not as many people as you want. Maybe you wish you had a bigger audience, but somebody is. Somebody's going to be impacted by what you say. And I mentioned this yesterday, that I had over the weekend a really nice dinner engagement with family friends. And one of the people I was meeting with, one of my friends, is very clearly a loyal Democrat and a Trump hater, somebody who views Trump as the biggest threat we face. So where do I make headway with that person? And frankly, I don't make very much, but I was talking to them and they said, well, I do watch your videos sometimes. They gave me some advice, make them shorter, have little bite-sized chunks, which frankly, I would do, except that the amount of time and effort required to do it would mean I do nothing else. Programs that do give you those 10-minute videos, very nice. They have staffers, they have producers. I don't have that. I do the 1 hour. This is a live program. I hope to talk to you. But they said to me, I said, well, why do you even watch my videos? They said, you have critique. You said you watch them every now and then. Why do it when so clearly you don't agree with what I'm saying? And they said, well, but sometimes you make a point. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. At least let me check that out. So even in a relatively unfertile ground or sterile ground for me, there is some ability, hopefully, to make headway. And you may disagree with me 100%. I've got callers all the time who said, oh, we have to stop Putin, right? We have to defend Ukraine at all costs. We've got to, say no to Putin. We can't get Putin. That attitude, which I find so wrong-headed. But I'll listen. I get it. He's a bad guy. The strategy we pursued hasn't worked when it comes to Ukraine. It just simply hasn't. So if you want to say this is a good strategy, then at some point you got to look at the facts and say, well, it hasn't worked out. What we're doing in Gaza, what we're doing in Ukraine, and those are policies that Kamala Harris completely 100% supports, are really, really bad. And they're doing terrible harm to our country. And for that reason, I can't support her. And they're not just doing harm to our country, they're doing harm to the entire planet. So I can't support her. But the people who are the most victimized by the Biden-Harris, or maybe I should say Harris-Biden policies at this point, are the people in the Middle East, and particularly, specifically, the people of Palestine. So this is the latest from the Turkish news service Anadolu Ajansi. We have 33 more dead, and it seemed like a relatively low number compared to what we've seen. Well, why is it relatively low? 48 yesterday? Well, there was a very, very, very brief ceasefire that the Israeli army agreed to, right? It's not a question of Hamas agreeing, okay? All the shooting, all the killing is by Israel. So Israel says, okay, we'll have like a temporary brief ceasefire where you can provide polio vaccines, right? Because polio is a real threat in that area, which has been completely, as you can see from that image, completely devastated. Yet, even with that ceasefire, 33 more Palestinians killed in Gaza. This is just Gaza. That's the Harris-Biden policy. And that the direct fruits of their policy, they have killed their policy, which, so you say, well, these people, I don't have power, very, very little, just get to talk to you. But this is not Donald Trump. This is not the Republican Party. Yes, they do support unlimited, endless support for Israel. According to Gray Zone, by the way, another 20 billion approved for Israel by Congress. Israel's killed over 40,800 Palestinians since October 7 and 33 yesterday. So that's what that policy, if you vote for Kamala Harris, that is, quite simply, that is what you're voting for. There's no other way you can't spin it any other way. You could argue, well, they're the lesser of two evil. Okay, you're still voting for that evil. You're still voting for a regime that has killed 40,800 Palestinians, virtually all of whom innocent. And it's not just, and by the way, sorry about that. I hate when that happens. I hate when I cut off part of my slide when I put it up there. Israel's warned Gaza alive. This is today. Children wounded in Israeli attack near hospital. So after the ceasefire was over, the Israel military killed people and injured people. So the injuries were in Gaza, in addition to the 33 dead, and this may be in tomorrow's count. 5 children wounded as Israeli forces target a residential building near a hospital. So they're ostensibly, we care about health. We're going to this is Israel, we care about the health of Gaza. We don't want people dying of polio. So yes, the Doctors Without Borders and other medical personnel can provide some polio vaccines, right? And then once the pause is halted, is ended, they bomb a residential building right near a hospital. That's who Harris-Biden support. The people who bomb residences near hospitals and wound children. That's who they support. That's who you will be supporting if you vote for them. If you vote for her, he's not running. You vote for her, that's what you're supporting. Not just killing by Israel, not just wounding people in Gaza, but also the West Bank now. 20 billion more to Israel. Israeli army raids Tulkaram, I guess that's a city in the West Bank, after drone attack targets kills a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old girl. I guess they were probably Hamas militants, or they might have been, or they were Hamas militant, or they were Hezbollah militant, or they were Palestinian militant adjacent. So I guess it's okay to kill them, right? I guess it's okay to support. But lest there be any doubt that Kamala Harris is all in for the genocide that we're witnessing right now, let's just hear from this. I played this a number of times, but you've got to hear this. She's running for president. And if you want to spare me Trump is worse, right? Don't vote for Trump. I don't know that he's worse. I don't know how you can be worse than this. But yeah, his rhetoric is equally bad, no question.
Would you do anything differently? For example, would you withhold some U.S. weapons shipments to Israel? That's what a lot of people on the progressive left want you to do.
Let me be very clear. I'm unequivocal and unwavering in my commitment to Israel's defense and its ability to defend itself.
So what Israel's doing right now, not going to change. That was how she finished. It ain't changing. Unequivocal, unwavering in my support for Israel. That ain't changing. That's the Kamala Harris position. You vote for her, that's what you're voting for. You can't do it. I don't know how you can do that, how you can spin that as somehow it's okay. I saw someone post on social media, well, if that's the price, I'm willing to pay that price. If that's what we have to accept to defeat Trump, I'm willing to accept. Why? Why would you be willing to say, I'll vote for that? Why is that okay? I so don't. This is the worst crime humans can commit. It's the worst thing they can do. And I just saw this. Oh, how they do so matters. No change in policy. Later on, she's asked, would you in any way condition sales to Israel based on the way they're conducting this war? Nope. And again, $20 billion just approved. Now, I know a lot of you are so desperate. You just, oh no, please, help, please don't put me in this position. Don't say I'm supporting genocide if I vote for Harris. She says some of the nice things. She says, oh, we how they do it matters. Yeah, but that's meaningless. It's just a plea for your vote. It's pandering. If you buy it, you're just a chump. And the only way you can support her and be intellectually consistent and say, oh, you know what? Palestinian lives don't really matter to me. I just don't care. Now, if you want it to change, you can't vote for that. You just can't. If you want her, if you think there's any chance to stop this and you want to, you have to vote for Jill Stein. It's that simple. The Muslim community recognizes this. Muslim voters now evenly split between Jill Stein and Kamala Harris, new poll finds. Brianna Joy Gray, Revolutionary Blackout Network, who are truly progressive, who are for working people, don't support Kamala Harris. And they have touted this. They have said, look, she's so bad that Muslims are going to vote for Jill Stein, and therefore, maybe we can change the Democratic policy. The Democrats are hemorrhaging voters. This could cost them the election. Maybe. I don't think it will. I don't think it's going to change enough votes because tragically, and again, we can see exactly how the Holocaust happened. The vast majority of Germans just didn't give a crap. They just didn't care. They might not have supported. They were like, nah, there's some Jews. I have Jewish friends. There was a Jewish guy at work. He was a hard worker. I liked him. But, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. And after all, Germany's back. We're back, baby. Look at what we just did to Poland. Look what we're doing to France. we got to support, these Nazis. They're doing a good job for us. Ultimately, yeah, it's too bad about the Jews, but so you can see exactly that attitude now. Well, maybe we don't really like what Israel's doing, but we can't really speak out against it. And, Harris isn't that. Is she better than, look, would you rather have Trump in office? So that's the attitude that leads directly to genocide. And you can see this. I was really astonished when I heard, because I like Revolution. I don't have the clip here. I'm going to play some other clips. I like RBN. I like Brianna Joy Gray an awful lot. But for them to be saying, oh, this is meaningful, 40% or whatever of Muslims now say they're going to vote for Jill Stein, it's not going to change anything. Look at those poll numbers. If they are losing some Muslim votes, and they may well be, I assume they are, they must be. If they are losing some Muslim votes, then those votes are being made up for by Jewish voters or by pro-Israel voters or by Zionist voters who she's assuaged concerns, right? Whose concerns may have been assuaged by Kamala's full-throated endorsement of Israel at all costs. By the way, this argument of I'll never abandon Israel, we have to support them, in their defense. What Israel's doing isn't defensive, but she's deliberately gaslighting you. She's deliberately misleading you into thinking that, oh yeah, they're, well, it's defense, so it's okay to kill people who are 14-year-olds and 16-year-olds. At no point has Kamala Harris ever centered victims of the Israeli murderous military. She simply hasn't done it. She'll use the passive voice. She'll lament. She'll cry crocodile tears, just as Joe Biden did to a degree. But there's no policy change, and that's all that matters. That ultimately is all that matters. Okay, so let's move to the topic at hand, which is the faux-gressives. So I was really interested in this. It wasn't Brianna Joy Gray, by the way. You can see this is a tweet by Brianna Joy Gray, one of my favorites. And I was really interested in what she had to say about this. But to be fair, to give credit where it's completely due, I learned of this video from Revolutionary Blackout Network. But I got it off of X here, and this is Brian Metzger. It's weird. I was so sort of struck by this because Brian Metzger posted this, and then it was retweeted by AOC. I'm not giving you the AOC. I'm giving you the Brianna Joy Gray retweet of the Metzger. But apparently, even AOC wasn't the originator of this video. Maybe she was doing something online and someone else was videoing it, videoed it, and she never posted it. I really don't know. Doesn't really matter. But what Brianna Joy Gray says is Jimmy Dore was right about her, calling her a fraud, right? She's a fraud. She's not a real progressive. She's not on your side. And there can be no doubt that that is true when you watch the video, which we'll get to in a second. But before I do, just also want to show you a better screenshot, a better screen capture. The question that AOC deigns to respond to on her daily answering people on Instagram or wherever this was first posted. It wasn't on, maybe it was Instagram. That's why on X it was posted by Metzger. That's my guess. Maybe she did this on Instagram. I really don't know. This was 2 days ago, 9/1. How do I tell my friends who are Jill Stein voters they are wasting their time and effort? From what I can tell, actually, let me put that back up. From what I can tell, Jill Stein's position on issues is far closer to AOC's, at least as AOC has presented it. I mean, Jill, AOC wants to keep it in the ground. Remember, she's a big Green New Deal supporter. She wants to keep, she wants Medicare for all. She wants to end our support for Israel. She said all those things. I mean, that's her view. So that's Jill Stein. That's not Kamala. So why would you'd think AOC would say, well, you're not wasting your time and effort. Remember, AOC said, hey, Joe Biden and I shouldn't even be in the same party. But now she's gone all in for the Democrats. That, you know, and it's tragic. But by doing that, by that loyalty to her party, by putting that above every other consideration policy, she's betrayed us. She's betrayed the American people. She's betrayed life itself, because the Democratic Party, no less than the Republican Party, is now a party of death. It's a death cult, really. We have become a country that is a death cult. Let me see if I can get this video for you, because it's really important that we play it. I'm playing it in full, and see if I can get it for you in transition over there. Oh, well, let me see. Okay. Should have had it. So I call the video chutzpah, and I'll explain why in a little bit, why I call it that, because here we go. So that is a little spicy. It's a little spicy is what she says to begin with. There was a little bit of applause. She has thoughts. Like, that's some sort of big deal for AOC. She has thoughts about how to convince somebody whose friends want to vote for Jill that they're throwing away their vote. So she has thoughts. Very interesting, AOC. And I assume now you're going to share those thoughts with us. So let's hear it.
I feel like I should save this for a live. I'm not coming for people who are thinking about this. I'll talk to you. What I have a problem with is the fact that if you are running for president, you are the de facto leader of your party. And first of all, trust me on this. I run as a third-party candidate in New York. I'm also run as a...
All right, so she's saying, hey, I don't have a problem with third parties. Look at me. I myself am a third-party candidate. Well, let's hear just a little bit more, and then I'll respond why that's complete and utter nonsense. It's such BS. She's treating voters, she's treating the responder like they're complete idiots. And tragically, people they just want an excuse, right? Her legions of fans, her cult, they just want an excuse to love AOC, right? No matter how ridiculous she is, her movements, her hand gestures and all that crap, it's all just a shtick she's got here. She's an actor. She's not representing you. She's not your public servant. That's what I always thought. You elect somebody to represent you, to be working for you. We pay her. And she acts like her opinion is so important. Oh, but I'll listen to you. Some people she'll listen to. You should be listening to every single constituent you have, AOC.
Working Families Party candidate in addition to running as a Democrat.
Right, so she says, I run as a Working Families Party candidate. Okay, that's a complete non sequitur. That has nothing to do. When you run for the Working Families Party, when I say you, AOC, you're running as a Democrat who's been endorsed by the Working Families Party. You're not taking on the Democratic Party. You're not challenging the Democratic Party. You're not saying the Democratic Party is doing really, really awful things. You're just a shill for the Democratic Party. And you're actually doing more harm, because you're taking a group that ostensibly, at least by virtue of its name, Working Families, is really for working families. And you're steering them into this neoliberal, warmongering party. So that's a complete garbage, what you just said. It's crap. It's trash.
Because trust me, I've been on record about my criticisms of a two-party system. So this is not about that.
Of course it is. What are you talking about? You're shilling for Kamala Harris. You may not like the two-party system. When have you ever endorsed a Green Party candidate? When have you ever endorsed a candidate who wasn't a Democrat? I'll tell you when. Never. It hasn't happened.
But you are the leader of your party. And if you run...
She's talking about Jill Stein. So now she's going to go after her. She's going to come for Jill Stein. Ooh, Jill must be scared. Tragically, AOC If she came out and said, yeah, I endorse Jill Stein for president. If Bernie said, I endorse Jill Stein for president. If they had gone to Kamala Harris and said, you know what? We can't support you unless you say in no uncertain terms that you will not supply Israel with military support, with materiel. Unless you do that, we're not going to endorse you. We're going to endorse Jill Stein. They had done that, I bet she would have changed her policy. I really do. I really think there would have been a very, very clear, definitive. She probably wouldn't have said, I'm stopping supplies right now. They should have said that to her. But if she said, you know, there might have been some negotiating and some bright line tests would have been provided by the Harris administration. But they didn't do that. They offered their unequivocal, unconditional endorsement of Killer Kamala.
For years and years and years and years and years in a row, and your party has not grown, and you don't
So now her attack is, well, her party hasn't grown. She's been the leader of the party for years and years and years and years, and the party hasn't grown. Well, what? You know, that's the criticism here all the time. Oh, they don't have a chance. Why haven't you helped them grow, AOC? Their policies are your policies. Why don't you help them grow? By the way, again, I don't want to be a cult of green. I heard Jill Stein went out, said she doesn't believe in capitalism at all. And I have a problem with that. You know, I usually prefer the term market economy to capitalism. But to the extent that what capitalism embraces or includes in its term beyond market economy is that you have investors, you have people who pool their money into limited liability corporations. I think that's okay. I don't have a problem. I think that we've seen a lot of benefits for humans from corporations, from companies with limited liability. But government has to really, really keep a very tight leash on them. And when it does, there can be tremendous benefits for people. We don't have that. We have, you know, basically we have oligopoly. We have a duopoly in government. We have an oligopolistic economy. And it's not even really capitalistic. There's no real competition. So I'm not saying Green Party is perfect. But given where we are now, with all the power resting in the hands of the billionaire class, then obviously we need a radical change. And the only person who offers a change at all, it's not even not just radical, but real meaningful change, is Jill Stein. So again, if your concern, AOC, is that Stein hasn't built a bigger Green Party, well, that's on you too. You should have been out there beating the bushes for more Green candidates. You should have been out there campaigning for Green candidates.
Add city council seats, and you don't add down ballot candidates, and you don't add state electeds. That's bad leadership.
All right, so this is such a joke. I call this chutzpah. Where has she led people? Nowhere. You just saw two of your squad get defeated by AIPAC. You didn't get Medicare for all. You didn't get a vote on Medicare for all. You have seen the Biden administration embrace pro-fossil fuel policies. You betrayed workers, both at Amazon and railway workers who wanted to strike. Where have you led in any effective way, AOC? How dare you? How dare you criticize Jill Stein?
And that to me is what's upsetting. Because if you have been your party's nominee for 12 years in a row.
She's getting a lot of criticism for that nonsense. She hasn't been the party nominee for 12 years in a row. As a matter of fact, and this is something RBN pointed out, in 2020, she wasn't the candidate for the Green Party for president. And it's not 12 years in a row. It's 3 election cycles, right? So 2016, Jill Stein ran. She wouldn't have run if Bernie, by the way, had been the Democratic nominee. Okay, so she ran in 2016. She did not run in 2020. And she wasn't planning to be the nominee in 2024. If you recall, she was prepared to back, she not only was prepared to, she stood back. She took a step back. She stepped back for Dr. Cornel West. Then he decided to run on his own. So, everything she's saying is crap. She's just gaslighting.
4 years ago, and 4 years before that, and 4 years before that. And you cannot grow your movement.
Again, I mean, it's so absurd what she's saying, and just it starts to turn my stomach. It sickens me.
Pretty much at all. And can't pursue any successful strategy, and all you do is show up once every 4 years.
All right, it's just, I'm going to stop it there. It's nonsense. Stein's constantly trying to build a movement. She speaks. If AOC had any real concern for progressive movement, she would be endorsing Jill Stein. She would be campaigning for Jill Stein. Now, I understand the rules of the Democratic Party are you can't endorse candidates who aren't Democrats, who are running against Democrats. So what? Do it anyway. Who cares? The Democrat Party is a wholly corrupt organization, AOC. And your complaint is somehow she hasn't built a successful organization. Your organization, the one you're part of, is corrupt, is evil, is supporting genocide, supports ecocide, wants to build a wall now. And you have the nerve to criticize Stein. And by the way, if your argument is, well, she hasn't had success attaining her goals, you've had no success attaining what you claim are your goals. Wow. How could anyone support her at this point? And yet she has her legions of fans. But listen, I don't enjoy listening to Taylor Swift, but I guess she's the most popular artist on the planet, musical artist. So, people have their tastes. But as soon as we start delving down, look, you like Taylor Swift, that's fine. I mean, I'm sure if you talk to her fans, people who buy her CDs or whatever, I guess you don't really buy CDs, but who download her music and pay for it and listen on Spotify, I'm sure they would say, well, her music speaks to me. I like the lyrics. It's poppy. It's this, it's that. Fine. Okay. I get it. That makes sense. That's a good reason. But if you say, well, I like AOC, you say, well, why? Well, she supports what I support. Well, what do you support? Well, I support Medicare for all. She hasn't done anything for you. She hasn't supported it. I support her because she provides an alternative that's further to the left than most Democrats. She doesn't. What has she done? She's done nothing to support. So you have to be rational when you look at a person like AOC. I'm really bitter. I'm angry because she betrays our movement. She makes it harder. She makes it virtually impossible to get where we need to go. Because she, rather than leading the progressives who still, for whatever reason, believe in her, instead of leading them to a better place, she's leading them to a terrible place. All right, I wanted to highlight another faux aggressive, right? This is Krystal Ball. I used to love Krystal Ball. I thought she was great when she was doing Breaking Points with Sagar on the Hill. But she's lost her way. I think I could blame Kulinski, but that would be very, very sexist. I know he's her husband. I could say, well, Kulinski, you're just sort of trying. I won't do that. That's what Gloria Steinem did. Remember in 2016, it was the fault of the boyfriends that so many young women were voting for Bernie. There's so many young women, so many 20-something women, college women supported Bernie. Well, they just do what their boyfriends tell them. That's what Gloria Steinem said. I don't blame Kulinski for Krystal Ball. I blame Krystal Ball for Krystal Ball. I blame Kulinski for Kulinski. So here's what Krystal Ball posts. She's just ragging on Tulsi Gabbard. And her criticism of Tulsi Gabbard, because we'll see. I'll try to make this really nice and big so you can see it. I'm going to slide it over. This is from Krystal's ex. So she's mocking Tulsi there, standing with Rabbi Botox. And she says, America first, like ironically. So Botox says, excited to see my two close friends, Gabbard and Kennedy, lead the Donald Trump transition team. So look, I think I can't stand the fact that Tulsi Gabbard, I don't care, Robert F. Kennedy, who cares about him? Tulsi Gabbard has on many occasions been she's been a legitimate voice for peace. She has been a legitimate critic of American empire. So it is disheartening that Tulsi Gabbard would hook up with Trump and would hook up with Botox there in that picture. But to mock her, oh, America first, like Krystal Ball, like who are you, Krystal Ball, to be so condescending, to be so, holier than thou? Like because what she's saying is, unlike me, Krystal Ball, Tulsi is not for America first. And Tulsi got a lot of criticism, right? Because she did talk to Trump after 2016. Well, she did what I said Nancy Pelosi should have done. They should have cozied up to Trump to a degree. They should have smoothed him down and praised him and tried to get him on their side. He was the president. Instead of making an enemy of him, maybe we would have gotten some better policies out of him. So is she so, is Krystal Ball such a virtuous woman that she can, just afford to be dismissive of Tulsi, who, by the way, served our nation honorably in the military? Is the Krystal this, arbiter of who really is for America? I would strongly say no. Here she is. This is back in, I think this is in February. By the way, I don't have the video for this, but she and Kulinski debated Breonna Joy Gray when Kulinski and Ball came out as full-throated supporters, endorsers of Joe Biden. Now, this was before October 7, and when Biden was just at October 7, but before Biden had, gone all in for Israeli genocide. Krystal made the point. A lot of his policies are really bad, meaning Biden's. A lot of the Biden-Harris policies are terrible. How are you going to ever hold them accountable if you're going to vote for them? I understand you can't stand Trump. You want someone other than Trump. Okay. What's your plan then going forward to move the Democratic Party to the left? They had no answer. They didn't care. It wasn't something they even thought about. It's just, hey, we want to be with the winning team. If we endorse, I know they went for Marianne Williamson in the primary, whatever, but it was a meaningless gesture. Obviously, she's a kook. She was going to lose anyway. She's talk about crystal balls and woo-woo stuff. So, she's a nut. The fact that they endorsed her actually is a huge indictment of Ball and Kulinski as well. But they made it clear they supported Biden. Then they kind of pulled back a little bit because of Biden's unequivocal support for the Israeli genocide. Here's Krystal Ball on that issue.
I got to tell you though, Sagar, the more that I see Joe Biden, the more ready for Kamala I am. You know how I feel about this woman and all that I've said about.
How could you ever be ready for Kamala? If you recognize how bad Biden is, why aren't you calling for? And she did. She said, "Well, I supported Marianne Williamson." Marianne Williamson is awful too. Marianne Williamson was making apologies for the Biden pro-genocide policy. Marianne Williamson's all in for unlimited, forever war with Russia. She's not a progressive. That's what this boils down to. She ain't a progressive. If you support Biden-Harris, if you support, which she did then, if you support Harris-Biden now, or Harris-Walz now, you're not on the side of poor, struggling, working people. You're not ultimately on the side of life on this planet.
About her, and I would take Kamala Harris over Joe Biden at this point, just between his age and between his support for Israel, which is like totally totally unmovable, unshakable, locked in like 1973. Yes.
All right. So she says, hey, I support Harris because she'd be better on Israel. That was the hope, this is the dream of progressives. I think it was Brianna Joy Gray made a great point. She said, hey, if Harris were going to make any policy change whatsoever with respect to Israel, she wouldn't have been made vice president. And if after she became vice president, there was any real concern among the billionaire class that supports Israel and funds the Democratic Party, if there were any concerns among the billionaire class that Harris wasn't going to continue the same policy, then she wouldn't have been the nominee. She wouldn't have been anointed. So there's a tiny scintilla. Krystal acknowledges a tiny scintilla of concern here when it comes to Harris's answer in her interview with Dana Bash, which we already played. No change in policy. We're going to do exactly what we've always been doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think now with Trump backing it, man, he threw those pro-lifers right under the bus, didn't he?
Right,
and
so now they're mocking Donald Trump, kind of, although I guess because he said, hey, yeah, we shouldn't just outlaw abortion. I don't support a constitutional amendment to ban abortion. It should be a state-by-state decision. That was what Trump said. And now a lot of Trump evangelical voters, I guess, are a little bit concerned, and maybe they're rethinking. And she's mocked. She's like, oh, he threw him under the bus. Isn't that great? Laughing about it. But let's hear some more.
He's going to do IVF for all as well. So I guess maybe the path, Ryan, to Medicare for all is we'll just go body part by body part, procedure by procedure, and piecemeal it until we've got entire coverage. So that's where
Trump said, yeah, IVF, in vitro fertilization. He did say this recently should be free, which if there's any medical procedure that shouldn't be free, it's IVF, right? I mean, I can't think of anything less in our interest to fund. We don't need more people on this planet. We need fewer people on this planet. And IVF is actually there's risks involved. No, that's not something we should be providing. We should have absolutely Medicare for all. We should have government funded abortions, reproductive rights, healthcare, as you know, that's a critical aspect of healthcare, and also contraception. But helping people have babies, no. Now, of course, once you're pregnant, yes, of course. But an elective procedure like IVF, I mean, that's crazy for us to support that.
For the entire body. So anyway, I'm sure we'll get to covering all of that next week. I actually want to set up, I've been trying for Breaking Points to set up a abortion debate. Sagar and I had this debate, but we're both pro-choice. So it'd be nice to have two people who are actually pro-life debating, the Trump campaign strategy and whether it's worth sacrificing that's someone
a very good idea.
Lila Rose, isn't that her name, who's been going very forcefully on the pro-life side, like this is outrageous.
I guess this woman, Lila Rose, is an activist who's saying don't vote for Trump. If he's not going to be for a complete abortion ban, you have to vote for some other candidate.
To hold him to account. As lefties, I feel a lot of compassion for their position because I feel like we're in the same spot with regard to issues like Gaza and Palestine.
All right, so she says it. Look, with regard to Gaza and Palestine, we're sort of where the pro-life community is with Trump. Because he said he's throwing them under the bus, her words. And presumably she's saying when Harris told Dana Bash, oh yeah, it's not going to ever change. We're not going to, we're going to keep funding Israel. We're going to keep supplying them with bombs. That ain't changing. By the way, for those of you who claim, well, it's not fair. Harris does say that it does matter how Israel fights its war and how it kills people. Okay, well then if that's true, why are you continuing to supply them with all those bombs? Why don't you stop supplying them bombs? Why don't you come out and say this is wrong? You could easily, but you don't. Because you don't give a crap, because you've made it very, very clear you're going to continue the same genocidal policies. That's what Harris has done. And Krystal, to her credit, says, yeah, I feel like I'm a little bit like where Lila LaRose is. I'm a supporter of Harris. I like Harris, but, I don't really like her Israel policy. So if that's true, then why don't you talk about Jill Stein? Why don't you say, well, here's an alternative? It's like a 1 hour conversation she had with Sagar, maybe longer. Jill Stein's name doesn't ever come up. The Green Party never comes up. She's clearly with Harris. Now, she acknowledges qualms, so that's sort of good. But it's like when Harris says, I have concerns about Israel. Just never says she has concerns about Israel, not one time. When she says, yeah, I have concerns about the, she doesn't even say what Israel's doing is wrong. She says how they conduct the war matters, but she doesn't say the way they're conducting it is wrong. So she never in any way challenges Israel's actions, does Harris. And in the same way, Krystal Ball never questions the way her support for Kamala Harris. That's it. There's no alternatives. We have no choice. So again, and you go back and you look at the policies, and if you say, well, and there's something really very, very disturbing too about the left so selective when it comes to the Gaza policy. So the left, like you'll have Kalinsky, you'll have Junk or whatever he goes by, say, yeah, it's really bad what Israel's doing when it comes, and we wish Kamala weren't so completely on board with the genocide, but otherwise we like Harris. She has lots of good policies. No, she doesn't. Her policies are terrible. People have criticized this chart. It's spot on. There's nothing untrue about it. She wants to build that border wall. She's for fracking. We've been through the genocide. Endless war with. She's all on board that. I call her a proto-fascist because she's not looking to be, have power forever. I got criticized. Well, someone said, well, there's no such thing as a proto-fascist. Proto-fascists were 100 years ago or 110 years ago before Mussolini took power. Then he was the first fascist. She's a proto-fascist in the United States. We don't have full-blown fascism, but she, as an avatar of today's Democratic Party, in the tradition of Bill Clinton, in the tradition of Barack Obama, in the tradition of Hillary Clinton, is moving us towards fascism. That's why she's a proto-fascist. I was kind of astonished when I was talking. I mentioned my friend who I saw over the weekend, who was critical of Dana Bash because Dana Bash asked Harris about fracking. And my friend said, well, I don't care about fracking. I'm like, how could you not care? We're burning our planet up. We're in the midst of ecocide. 14 straight months of the hottest temperatures ever. Global ocean temperatures. There must have been, I think what happens there is, so you look at what happened at the end of July. We'll get August up here. 14 straight months of a global heat record. July was the hottest month ever recorded. 3 continents had their hottest July ever. It says here global ocean temperature snapped a 15-month record streak in July. All right, so here's why that happened, I believe. Because it's so hot, the polar ice caps are melting at record speed. And when that happens, they melt. The melt is 33 degrees, right? 32 degrees Fahrenheit plus a little bit more, 1 degree Celsius, whatever you want to call it. So that's colder than the average temperature of the water, which is like 58 degrees, 59 degrees. So all that colder melt, ice melt, snow melt, is what is keeping the ocean temperatures from getting ever hotter. But it doesn't mean we're not in the midst of a devastating ecocide caused by the climate holocaust. Before we get into, well, now we'll I really was really disappointed when my friend said to me, I don't really care about fracking. And I think they care. I don't think that's true. I think the reason they said it is because Harris is bad on fracking. Harris flip-flopped on fracking. Harris, and I get it. It's sort of like you people would say, well, she has to support Israel or she won't get reelected. She has to be for fracking or she won't win Pennsylvania. I think voters, and I understand that's the power of money. That's how money is such a big factor. But, you know, Democrats put themselves in this cleft stick because they don't champion working people. So they have no room for error. They have no wiggle room. They can't say to working people in Pennsylvania, yeah, look, I know you want those fracking jobs that'll pay you better money than you may be getting working at Walmart. But we think of what we've been doing. We've been fighting to bring good jobs back to the United States. We're bringing antitrust actions against companies like Walmart so we can have lots more small business employers who will provide better jobs. We're guaranteeing you health care. So even without a job, at least you'll have your conditions will be treated. But the Democrats don't do any of that. So they have no wiggle room. The only thing they can say to working class voters is, hey, we're fighting to bring you jobs that will cause you cancer like fracking and destroy your fresh drinking water. I think voters want politicians. I think they want leaders who, you know, have courage of their convictions, who stand for something. Democrats stand for nothing. Here's Kamala Harris.
And in 2019, you said, quote, there is no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. Fracking, as you know, is a pretty big issue, particularly in your must-win state of Pennsylvania.
Sure.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020.
All right, so I'm trying to understand. She's mad. You could tell. She's really mad. She's like, oh, I already said I don't support it. I made it clear even in 2020. I backtracked as early as 2020. So why are you going after me for backtracking? Well, because you have a terrible policy. Because you're supporting world-destroying drilling. That's why. I mean, yeah, it's pretty easy, pretty obvious.
I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
So she's really proud of that.
In 2019,
it's like she so doesn't get it. It's quite astonishing, really. I will always support Israel. Like, that's a good thing. I will not ban fracking. Like, that's a good thing. No, you had a better policy when you were running for president. You were against fracking. It's not like it's good what your policy is now. It's bad. And you've only adopted it because I don't know. I presume you adopted it not just to win Pennsylvania, because you want to get more money from the oil and gas industry, which is a huge supporter of Democrats.
In a town hall, you said you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So,
right,
yes. So it changed in that campaign?
In 2020, I made very clear where I stand. We are in 2024, and I've not changed that position, nor will I going forward.
Well,
I kept my word.
All right, so there you go. So she's going to keep drilling. Drill, baby, drill. Drill, baby, drill. Now, and we're going to get to SIrota, because I've given you 2 of my 3 progressives, right? So the progressives are in order, I guess, of doing it on the program, and perhaps of importance. AOC first, Krystal Ball second, and we'll get to SIrota, David SIrota in a moment. But here's what Brianna Joy Gray posted. This is pretty instructive. For those of you who think, oh, fracking doesn't really matter. Or what I really want to address are those of you who say, hey, hell, you always say how awful the climate holocaust is. You're always talking about the climate catastrophe and global burning. So how can you possibly support somebody other than Harris? Because you're helping Trump. If you say, well, vote for Jill Stein, what you're really doing is helping Donald Trump, which is not true. I'm just as much helping Harris as Trump, because I'm not saying vote for Trump. I mean, you know, what if I said, hey, vote for Trump? Harris is so awful, you should vote for Trump. I could do that. I wouldn't do it, but I could. If I did that, you'd say to me, and then I switched. I said, you know what? Don't vote for Trump. Vote for Jill Stein. So a Trump supporter might say, well, wait a second, Hal, you've made it very, very clear that you hold Kamala in complete contempt, but you're helping her because now you're saying don't vote for Trump. So no, I'm not helping Trump and I'm not helping Harris. But for those of you who say to me, well, you have to support Harris if you care about the environment because Trump's a global burning denier, which he is. I'm like, well, it's just like, I don't care. I don't care what your beliefs are. I don't care what you say. I care what you do. So Harris can say, well, I care about those Palestinians that Israel's killing, but I'm going to keep giving them bombs. So I don't care. What does it matter to me whether you internally have angst? That's meaningless. Your policy is leading directly to genocide. Your policy is genocidal, and you've just promised you're going to continue it. Okay, you get that there's that we're committing ecocide, but you're going to keep committing ecocide. So what good does that do me? This is what Brianna Joy Gray posted on X, which is a perfect example. Average monthly U.S. energy production is almost doubled, or it's doubled under Biden. They're bragging about it. On my watch, we've responsibly increased our oil production. How the hell is that responsible? That's incredibly reckless, destructive. It's not responsible at all. It's responsive to the demands of the oil and gas industry, and that's all. All right, let's go to... got a couple, I want to continue this, but let's play, because I mentioned, so we're going to get to why on this very topic, what's his name is such a phony, right? SIrota, right? Because SIrota, well, I think I want to play. I would rather play. We'll play this because here's SIrota. He was on with Brianna Joy Gray, and he said he wanted Kamala to win. He's against Trump. Here he is on Democracy Now!
Change in position. When Kamala Harris was first running for president in 2019, right, she said she was against fracking. That's primaries. She's appealing to the base of the Democratic Party. But now she didn't have to go through the primaries, and she's appealing to the population at large. Can you respond to what she said?
Well, I think what was most problematic about what she said was that she said that the Inflation Reduction Act means that they can hit the carbon emissions targets that they want to hit, when in fact this year there was a report out quite recently saying that the Inflation Reduction Act has certainly reduced carbon emissions in the United States, but not nearly on track to what the Biden-Harris administration has projected and has pledged to hit by 2030. So she's saying the Inflation Reduction Act can bring down emissions without having to do anything like banning fracking, when the data says exactly the opposite, that there's going to need to be much more done to reduce carbon emissions. And I think the takeaway here is what we've seen from the Biden-Harris administration generally, which is they are willing to make real investments in the supply side of clean energy. They are willing to make real investments in the green energy economy, but they have shied away from policy that would reduce the supply of oil and gas. I mean, they have expanded leases, they have expanded fracking, they have expanded drilling on public lands beyond where even President Trump expanded it, and oil production has expanded to record levels in the United States. That's not going to be enough. It is good to invest in clean energy, for sure, but the data is telling us that what Kamala Harris said about fracking, that we can do it without dealing with reducing the supply of fossil fuels, it's just not borne out by the numbers. And ultimately, the consequences for that will be on the United States. It will be for the entire world.
Right.
David
So
Sirota, I want to ask you to stay
catastrophic
with us for
consequences, let me stop it. They are catastrophic consequences for the entire world. And, okay, well, I'm still going to support her. By the way, this argument, this all of the above approach is ridiculous, because the idea, well, it's good to invest in green energy, but we also need to rein in the fossil fuels. You don't need to invest in green energy. You need to rein in the fossil fuels. You do that, you make the cost of the fossil fuels prohibitively expensive, then the natural movement in capitalism, which again, I'm not totally against capitalism, the natural movement by investors will be towards clean green energy, and our tax money won't have to be used to provide incentives for solar, wind, and the like. There's another problem, though, with the incentives for solar, wind, and the like. They're not perfect. The best thing we can do is consume less, period, of all energy. We should be consuming no fossil fuels, but we should also be consuming as little as we can possibly consume of solar, wind, because those require infrastructure, those require, all sorts of consumption of natural resources, lithium, various problematic issues that arise out of the use of clean green energy. The policy is totally wrong-headed. And SIrota kind of gets it, but he will not talk about the corruption. He says, well, they're prepared. Well, I guess they'll support subsidies for clean green energy, which costs us more money, which is giving money to energy companies, just better energy companies than ExxonMobil and the like. That's a bad policy too. It's better than the alternative, but it's not good. So does this mean he gets it? And he's like, well, yeah, we got to go somewhere else. We got to go. David Sirota has a lot of influence. People on the left really look up to him. He's on a lot of programs. He's on, Democracy Now! You just saw him. Here he is on Bad Faith with Brianna Joy Gray. He's on all sorts of programs. I think he was on with Emma Vigeland and Cedar, right, on their crap show. I forget what it's called, even Majority Report. So he could be leading people to a better place, just like AOC could be leading people to a better place. He's not.
Like I think good vibes are better than bad vibes when it comes to not wanting Donald Trump to be president.
All right, so again, the target is Trump. Trump's the problem, right? There you go. Good vibes. Because Brianna Joy Gray, there she's sort of smirking. I don't know why she's smiling. She's too smiley. Why are you happy, Brianna Joy Gray?
I don't want Donald Trump to be president.
I don't want to be president either, but I guess I want Kamala Harris.
It's not an altogether stupid strategy to try to just vibe it out for 12 weeks and
he's defending
and try to win. I mean,
when he's saying vibe it out, in other words, don't put your policies out there. Don't tell us what you believe. Don't tell us what you're going to. He's basically anyone but Trump. That's the SIrota position. That ain't progressive. Making excuses for Kamala Harris, that ain't progressive. And you heard him, he acknowledged it. He said, yeah, she's really bad. He doesn't say really bad. He doesn't say corrupt. I'll say it. Corrupt on energy. That's what it boils down to. She won't do the right thing because of oil and gas money and fears. And it's legitimate to worry about Pennsylvania. But the reason you're worrying about pro-frack, states where working class people depend on fracking is because the Democratic Party has completely betrayed working people. So they're desperate, and they themselves have few other options but to pursue employment in a incredibly destructive an industry, which is what we all are. We're all complicit. You go into law these days, you basically, there's nothing, and everything you do is going to make things worse. You work as a prosecutor, you're locking people up. You're feeding the prison industrial system. You work as a defense attorney, you're working to put often criminals who prey on poor, struggling, and working on innocent people in jail. I mean, if you're a defense attorney, you're trying to keep them out. Now, if you're a white collar prosecutor, all right, that's probably pretty, it's hard to see the negatives there. But again, it's very different. You go into corporate law, all the money in corporate law is representing the billionaire class. We're all complicit. And that's this government. That's the corruption that's endemic in both parties. David SIrota won't talk about it. David SIrota won't say the only way we get past this is we move outside the party duopoly. He won't do that. He's not an ally. He's not a real progressive. He's a faux progressive. Let me just play a little bit more from him.
Like I think good vibes are better than
vibes. Let's see if we get to the next.
One can credit her with the initial impulse, but how much does that initial impulse?
Where this came up was that Kamala Harris was, I guess, because he says, she can be really good. She was good on fracking before she was bad on it. She was good on Medicare for all before she was bad on it. And Brianna Joy Gray won't have that crap. She won't have it. So here's what she says. She says, you can credit her meaning Harris, with good positive impulse, but what good does it do you?
Impulse matter if the defining characteristic of who you are is capitulating to your donors or your advisors or whomever it is that repeatedly and durably change your perspective to the more conservative establishment view on not just Medicare for all, but seemingly every progressive policy she's ever backed, from being against fracking into now trumpeting her investment in continuing to build Donald Trump's border wall. Right. I mean,
right, so that's a great question. She's like, you gave her some props just now, SIrota. You said, hey, she has some good instincts, although she sadly backs away from them. And Brianna Joy Gray's like, well, what good does that do any of us? How can you credit her even with having those good instincts if she backs away from them the second there's any potential political cost to it? Or worse, for her financial cost. Isn't this a reflection of the corruption? Brianna Joy Gray doesn't say this. I'm saying it. In her corrupt nature, but also the entire party's corrupt nature. So does SIrota entertain that, or does he just ignore it?
Why should anyone credit anything that she might say, including this most recent price gouging policy, when the only thing we know for sure about her is that she's backtrack Sally? But this is probably a good place to go ahead.
I agree. And
so
I think
she's saying, obviously, but I just want to set the table again. Is SIrota going to deal with that? He's going to say, yeah, she's not somebody we can believe. Because that's what Brianna Joy Gray is saying. She's dishonest. She's a fundamentally dishonest person who has no courage of any convictions whatsoever. That's Brianna Joy Gray's completely accurate take on Harris. SIrota won't have that.
A lack of being able to ask her questions about this.
So now he's saying, well, we need to ask her questions. It would be good to have some questions asked for. Before he said it's a good strategy for her not to answer questions. Now he's saying, well, maybe it would be a good strategy. Why is it a good strategy if she just lies anyway? Right? What's good about getting her on the record if no matter what she says isn't going to be, is just as likely to be false as true?
It makes it more concerning that you'd want to probe some of this and there's no real forum to probe it.
All right, so there's no acknowledgement by him that we should be looking somewhere else. There's no recognition that we have to go in a different direction. Remember, he said, I want Donald Trump to lose. I get why they're pursuing this strategy. At no point does he address the fact that this cancer of corruption and dishonesty and self-dealing and complete lack of any concern for morality, for decency, that is endemic in both parties, means we need to go somewhere else. He won't go there. He won't acknowledge that. He's not a progressive. So let's get to the final point. So she says to him, it's all part of the SIrota. She says, Brianna Joy Gray says to SIrota, she's for this wall. She's for this border wall. How is that okay? Right? She first she was against the wall, now she's for it. And he doesn't address that. But I'm going to say you can't support her. This is a terrible, terrible policy. SIrota's explained, by the way, that he cares about the environment, right? Democrats are pretty good about promoting clean, green energy, but unfortunately they also are unwilling to take on the fossil fuel industry. So how can you support Harris? Trump's border wall damaged cultural and natural resources. It's terrible for the environment. You can see it right there. You can see that wall. Animals on one side of the wall can't get to the other. Plants can't migrate through that wall very easily. Some can, I suppose, but many can't. The wall is terrible for the environment. And it's not just bad for the environment, which I bring up because SIrota says he cares about the environment, but he still supports Harris. It's terrible for poor, struggling, and working people who are desperate to come into this country. The policies in the package make one of the strictest bills in a century. This is the bill that Kamala Harris supports. It's not just a wall, a massive investment in detention and deportation, as well as cutting off asylum. If you support that, you're not a progressive. You're not on the side of working people. You can't do it. And I don't care if you're who you are. And I don't excuse people, well, they're not a pundit and they don't really understand all this. The truth isn't hard to find. Really isn't. So let's end. I played a lot of videos, or some videos anyway. I just want to play this because I think this lays out where we need to be. I don't know who this guy even is, but I guess I should find out. I like what he has to say, and we'll let him have the final word.
As you said, Joe Biden could end this genocide tomorrow with one phone call. So what would the Green Party do if you became president to stop Israeli attacks on Palestinians and to resolve the conflict?
All right, so let me stop that. Yeah. I like what he has to say because he's giving voice to, he's centering the person who can make things better and who would make things better if she were given the opportunity. So that's, it's that simple.
Exactly. So first step would be that phone call. Second step, would be
so the phone call is to Bibi.
Shipments of
we're not
of
giving you a penny. We're done. It's over. Party's over for you. The killing party, Bibi, is over. That's what she's saying we need to do. She's right. That's who you need to support. And if your argument is, well, she can't win as long as you say she can't win. She can't win as long as you go after people who are trying to, help her win. And even if she can't win, does it matter? When you have two candidates who are so bad, whose policies are so harmful, so destructive, does it matter in the end if you vote for somebody who doesn't win? At least you're not throwing your vote to the evil.
And all military support for Israel until Israel comes into compliance with international law. So it's and human rights. So it's not only that the genocide has to stop, but the occupation also has to stop, and the ethnic cleansing and the apartheid state.
All right, so there it is. That's simple. That's the answer. She's the answer. She's the answer. Jill Stein is the answer. All right, I'll be back tomorrow. Would love to hear from you. I know a lot of people post. Do try to get. I mentioned this over and over. Social media. You post in response to my videos. I will reply. I do want to talk to you. That's the goal. We do this to have a dialogue. You say one thing on Facebook or YouTube or X or what have you, and I say something different. That's not a true dialogue. It is a dialogue. But for me, a more meaningful dialogue is you say something and then I respond directly, and then you tell me where I didn't answer your concerns, I didn't address them. That is how we maybe, hopefully, can start the process of healing our nation and our world, to which we've done so much harm, irrevocable harm.